The note on her windshield was short but chilling. You weren't supposed to be there, but thank you. Emma's heart raced as she scanned the empty hospital parking lot. The wind howled, carrying the faint sound of laughter. Too distant to trace. She clutched the note tighter, her mind flashing back to the lost child she had helped mere hours ago. Who had written this? And what did they mean by you weren't supposed to be there? Emma Harris had always prided herself on being dependable. As a night shift nurse at St. Mary's Hospital, she spent most of her life in the glow of fluorescent lights, surrounded by the hum of medical monitors and the steady shuffle of footsteps. Her days were a blur of long hours and little sleep, punctuated by brief moments of peace when she could savor a cup of lukewarm coffee in the break room. It wasn't glamorous, but it was important. And yet, as the clock neared midnight on a chilly November evening, Emma couldn't shake the weight of exhaustion. Her scrubs clung to her like a second skin, and her feet ached from 12 hours of non-stop work. Outside, the city was quiet, bathed in the orange glow of streetlights. The cold wind howled through the nearly empty streets, sending leaves skittering across the pavement. Emma's personal life wasn't much different from her work routine. Bills piled up faster than she could pay them, and her small apartment felt more like a crash pad than a home. She often thought about how she barely had time to call her younger brother or visit her aging mother. But tonight, she told herself, she'd get some sleep and maybe, just maybe, find time to breathe. With her shift finally over, she grabbed her coat and made her way to the parking lot. The air was biting, and her breath came out in frosty puffs. As she approached her old sedan, she caught sight of something unusual, a small figure standing alone near the edge of the lot. A child, no older than 7, wearing a thin jacket and clutching a stuffed rabbit. Emma's heart tightened. What was a child doing out here, alone, at this hour? Emma hesitated for a moment, her tired mind racing through possibilities. Maybe the child's parents were nearby. Maybe they had just stepped away for a second. But as she looked around, the parking lot was eerily empty. The faint hum of distant traffic was the only sound besides the rustle of leaves. The child stood motionless, her wide eyes staring at the ground. She clutched the stuffed rabbit tightly, its once white fur now dingy and matted. Emma's nurse instincts kicked in. She approached slowly, careful not to startle her. "Hey there, sweetie," Emma said softly, crouching to the child's level. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The girl looked up, her eyes a striking shade of pale blue, almost glowing under the dim streetlight. She didn't say a word, but her lips quivered as she hugged the rabbit closer. Emma's heart ached. "It's cold out here. Let's get you somewhere warm. Do you know where your parents are?" Still no answer. The girl only shook her head slowly. Emma glanced around again, hoping to spot someone, anyone, who might be looking for her, but the streets remained silent. She pulled off her coat and gently draped it over the girl's small shoulders. "Come on, let's sit in my car for a bit. We'll figure this out together, okay?" The girl didn't resist as Emma led her to the car. Inside, Emma turned on the heater, letting the warmth fill the space. The girl relaxed slightly, her small hands thawing as she rubbed them together. "Do you have a name?" Emma asked, keeping her tone light and gentle. After a long pause, the girl finally spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. "Lily." Emma smiled. "That's a beautiful name, Lily. My name's Emma." Lily nodded but said nothing more. Emma reached for her phone, ready to call the police, but something in Lily's expression stopped her. There was a quiet intensity in the child's gaze, a mix of fear and something deeper, something Emma couldn't quite place. "Don't worry," Emma reassured her. "We'll get you home safe." As Emma dialed, Lily suddenly grabbed her hand, her small fingers cold against Emma's skin. "No police," she whispered urgently, her eyes wide with fear. "Please." Emma hesitated, surprised by the girl's sudden plea. "Lily, they can help us find your family." Lily shook her head fiercely. "No police," she repeated, her voice trembling. Emma felt a chill that had nothing to do with the cold outside. Something wasn't right, but she couldn't ignore the desperation in Lily's eyes. "Okay," Emma said gently. "No police. We'll figure something else out." Lily's grip on her hand loosened and she nodded, her expression softening slightly. They sat in silence for a moment, the hum of the heater filling the car. Emma glanced at the stuffed rabbit in Lily's lap. "What's your rabbit's name?" she asked, hoping to ease the tension. Lily looked down at the toy and whispered, "Mr. Hops." Emma chuckled softly. "Mr. Hops, huh? He looks like a very brave bunny." A small, fleeting smile crossed Lily's face, and for a moment Emma felt a sense of connection. But that sense was quickly replaced by unease as Lily added softly, "He keeps me safe, even from the bad people." Emma's stomach tightened. "Bad people? What do you mean, Lily?" The girl didn't answer, her eyes shifting to the darkness beyond the car window. Emma followed her gaze, but all she saw was the empty parking lot. "Lily," Emma said carefully, "if someone's hurting you, I need to know. I want to help." Lily remained silent, her small hands clutching Mr. Hops once more. Emma decided not to press her further, sensing that the girl's trust was fragile. Instead, she started the car. "Let's get somewhere safe," Emma said softly. "We'll figure it out together." As they drove, Emma couldn't shake the feeling that this night was far from ordinary. There was something about Lily, something that felt like the beginning of a much larger mystery. Emma had just finished tucking Lily into the couch in her living room, wrapped in the thickest blanket she could find. The girl had fallen asleep almost instantly, her small form finally at peace after hours of tension. Emma sat nearby, her mind racing with questions. Who was Lily? What had she meant by bad people? And why was she so terrified of involving the police? The quiet hum of the heater filled the room as Emma leaned back, staring at the ceiling. She resolved to wait until morning before deciding her next steps. But just as her eyelids began to grow heavy, her phone buzzed on the coffee table, breaking the silence. It was a text from her neighbor, Mrs. Carson, who lived in the apartment below. "Emma, you need to come down right now. There's someone looking for you. Says it's urgent." Emma's heart skipped a beat. She glanced at Lily, who remained sound asleep, clutching Mr. Hops tightly. Taking a deep breath, Emma slipped on her shoes and made her way downstairs. The cold night air hit her as she stepped outside. Mrs. Carson stood near the entrance, her face pale and anxious. "They're over there," she whispered, pointing toward the street. Emma followed her gaze and saw two figures standing by a sleek black car parked under a dim streetlight. One of them was a tall man in a dark suit, his posture rigid, his face unreadable. The other was a woman, similarly dressed, holding what looked like a tablet. "Emma Harris?" the man called out as she approached. Emma nodded, her pulse quickening. "That's me. What's going on? Who are you?" The man reached into his coat and pulled out a badge. "My name is Agent Reed. This is Agent Moore. We're with a special division of the FBI." Emma's mouth went dry. "FBI? What do you want with me?" Agent Reed exchanged a glance with his partner before replying. "We need to ask you some questions about a child you encountered tonight. Her name is Lily." Emma's stomach churned. "How do you know about Lily? Is she in danger?" Reed's expression remained stoic. "It's more complicated than that. Lily's disappearance was reported earlier today, but there's something you need to understand. She's not just a missing child. She's the daughter of someone very important." Emma frowned, trying to process his words. "Important? Who?" Agent Moore stepped forward, holding up the tablet. On the screen was a photo of a man Emma recognized instantly. Richard Langston, a prominent tech billionaire whose face was splashed across news outlets regularly. His eyes, sharp and calculating, were a familiar sight, but Emma had never imagined his life intersecting with hers. "Lily is Richard Langston's daughter," Moore said. "She was taken from their family estate earlier this evening." Emma's mind raced. "But she was alone when I found her. No one was chasing her or anything." Reed's jaw tightened. "That's what we're trying to figure out. We believe the people who took her may still be watching, and your involvement tonight wasn't a coincidence." Emma took a step back, her head spinning. "I don't understand. Why would anyone target me?" "We don't know yet," Reed admitted. "But your actions saved Lily from a potentially dangerous situation. For now, we need to ensure both of your safety." Emma's hands trembled as she tried to comprehend the gravity of the situation. "She begged me not to call the police," she murmured. "She was so scared." Reed nodded. "That tracks with what we know. Lily may have been threatened or conditioned not to trust authorities." Moore glanced around nervously. "We need to move quickly. Is she still in your apartment?" Emma hesitated. "Yes, she's sleeping." Reed's voice softened. "You did the right thing, Emma. But we need to relocate both of you to a secure location immediately." Emma's heart pounded in her chest. This was more than she'd ever anticipated. A quiet night turned into a whirlwind of danger and intrigue. And yet a part of her felt a fierce determination to protect Lily, no matter the cost. "Okay," she said finally. "Let me get her." As Emma turned to head back to her apartment, she couldn't shake the feeling that this was only the beginning. Something far bigger than she could have imagined was unfolding, and she was now at the center of it. Emma carried Lily down the apartment stairs, her mind racing with a mixture of fear and confusion. The two agents stood by the car, their expressions unreadable. Lily stirred in her arms but didn't wake. She looked so small, so fragile, and Emma felt a surge of protectiveness that surprised her. Once they were inside the sleek black car, Agent Reed turned to Emma. "We're taking you to a secure location. Mr. Langston is waiting to meet you." The ride was tense and silent. The city lights blurred past the window as Emma clutched Lily, her thoughts spiraling. Who would kidnap the daughter of one of the world's most powerful men? And why had fate placed Emma in the middle of it? Finally, they pulled up to a private estate, far from the bustling city. The gates opened, revealing a sprawling mansion surrounded by manicured gardens. The car stopped, and Emma stepped out, still holding Lily. The grandeur of the place was overwhelming, but there was no time to marvel. Inside, a tall, commanding man in his early 50s was waiting in the grand foyer. His presence filled the room. Richard Langston's face was as familiar as his reputation, ruthless in business, reclusive in his personal life. But tonight, he wasn't the untouchable billionaire. He was a father with worry etched deeply into his features. When his eyes landed on Lily, a wave of relief washed over him. He crossed the room in a few long strides, gently taking his daughter from Emma's arms. "Lily," he whispered, his voice breaking. "You're safe now." Lily stirred awake, her eyes fluttering open. "Daddy," she murmured, wrapping her arms around his neck. Emma stood awkwardly, unsure of what to do next. Richard turned to her, his eyes filled with gratitude. "You saved her," he said. "I can never thank you enough." Emma shook her head. "I just did what anyone would have done." Richard's expression hardened slightly, a hint of the shrewd businessman emerging. "Not everyone would have done what you did. Most people would have called the authorities or driven past without stopping. You acted with compassion and courage." Agent Reed stepped forward. "Mr. Langston, we still don't know how the kidnappers got through your estate's security, but it's clear that Emma's intervention disrupted their plan." Emma frowned. "What exactly happened? Why was Lily alone when I found her?" Richard sighed, his shoulders slumping. "There's been a breach in my inner circle. Someone close to me orchestrated this. They wanted leverage, Lily. She must have escaped somehow and wandered into the city." Emma's stomach turned. The thought of someone using a child as leverage was sickening. "Is she going to be safe now?" Richard nodded. "She will be. I've already taken steps to secure our safety. But Emma," he paused as if weighing his next words carefully, "you've risked a lot by helping her, and I won't let that go unacknowledged." Emma shifted uncomfortably. "I didn't do it for a reward." Richard gave a small, knowing smile. "I understand that, but I want to offer you something more than money. You've shown incredible compassion, and I think you could help others in ways you might not have imagined." Emma blinked, confused. "What do you mean?" "I run several philanthropic initiatives focused on healthcare and child welfare," Richard explained. "We could use someone like you, someone who truly cares. I'm offering you a leadership role. You'd have the resources to make a real difference, not just for Lily, but for countless others." Emma was stunned. She had never imagined her life changing so drastically. Her nursing career, while fulfilling, had always been about getting through each shift, each paycheck. Now she was being offered a chance to impact lives on a much larger scale. "I don't know," she said hesitantly. "This is a lot." Richard nodded, his expression softening. "Take your time, but know that you've already proven you're capable of extraordinary kindness and strength. This isn't just a job. It's a way to extend the impact of what you did for Lily." Emma glanced at the little girl, now fast asleep in her father's arms. A wave of emotion hit her. She thought about all the nights she had spent in the hospital, comforting patients, many of whom had no one else. She thought about the exhaustion, the thankless hours, and the fleeting moments of connection that made it all worth it. "You reminded me," Richard continued, his voice quiet but firm, "that even with all the power and wealth in the world, it's the simple acts of kindness that truly matter. And those acts can ripple outward, changing lives in ways we can't always see." Emma took a deep breath, her mind swirling. This was an opportunity to step into a world she had never dared to dream of. But it was also terrifying, leaving the familiar behind, taking on such a huge responsibility. "I'll need time to think," she said finally, her voice steady. Richard smiled. "Of course. Take all the time you need. Just know that whatever you decide, you'll always have my gratitude." As Emma prepared to leave, she felt a strange mix of emotions, fear, hope, and a sense of possibility she hadn't felt in years. She looked back at Lily one last time, her heart swelling with a quiet resolve. Life, Emma realized, had a way of changing in an instant. One moment of kindness had brought her here, and now it could lead her somewhere she never expected. As Emma stepped out into the cool dawn air, she felt an overwhelming sense of clarity. The events of the past hours had been a whirlwind, yet they left her with an undeniable truth. A single act of kindness could ripple out in ways she never imagined. Back at her apartment, the note Lily had left on her car still sat on her kitchen table. "Thank you for keeping me safe," it read, in shaky, childlike handwriting. Emma ran her fingers over the paper, realizing the depth of those words. She had simply followed her instinct to help, but in doing so, she'd altered the course of her own life, and Lily's. Weeks later, Emma stood on the balcony of her new office, overlooking the bustling city. She had accepted Richard Langston's offer, stepping into a role that allowed her to oversee initiatives aimed at protecting and nurturing vulnerable children. It was a leap of faith, but one she didn't regret. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting the sky in brilliant shades of orange and pink, Emma felt a profound sense of peace. Life had a way of testing people, of placing them in moments where their choices could shape not just their own futures, but the futures of others. One small decision had led her here, and now, she was ready to pay it forward every day.